皆様こんにちは。
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
本日はようこそお越しくださいま
Welcome
した。
to the forum.
ただいまより
We will now
2023
begin
年度
Goi
五位
Peace
平和
Foundation
財団フォ
Forum
ーラムを開催いたしま
2023.
す。私は
I
本
have
日の
the
司会進行を
honor
担
of
当いたします
serving as your moderator
どうぞ
today.
よろ
My
しくお願いい
name
たし
is
ます。
Naoko Nitta. I thank you in advance for your cooperation.
さて皆様実に
Now,
4
this
年ぶ
is
りと
the
なりま
first
す。
time in
この
4
会
years
場で開
that
催する
we
こと
are
が
having the
4年ぶり
forum
となり
in
ます。
person.
もちろん過去3回も
On the
フォーラムを
three
途切れる
past
ことなく
occasions,
配
the
信でお
forum
届けしてまいりま
was
したけれども、
continued
こうして直に皆様
with
とお顔を
live
拝見しなが
streaming
らお送りでき
online,
ることは本当に
but
この
to
上
be
ない喜
able
び
to
で
have
ござい
this
ます。
forum in person,
そしてまた
to
今
have
回の
live
フォーラムの
audience
テーマなん
is
ですけれ
indeed
ども、
giving us a great pleasure. The theme of the forum today is changing the world from within. The world over is focused on this theme today. How can we resolve various conflicts and injustice in the world? And how can we bring to bear our internal power for desired future? What is that internal power? How can we cultivate internal power? Each one of us can lead internal transformation to action and make contribution for the betterment of the world. Together with you, we would like to think about how we can make such contribution. This is going to be a 2-hour and 45-minute program. Please stay until the very end of the program. I would now like to invite Mr. Hiroo Saionji, President of the Goi Peace Foundation, to say a few words on behalf of the organizer.
皆様こんにちは。
Good afternoon, everyone.
2023年度のご平和財団フォーラム。
Thank you very much for attending the Goi Peace Foundation Forum 2023. As the moderator mentioned, this is the first time in 4 years that we are having the forum in person. Over the last 3 years, we had a virtual forum, which had its benefits. People who are living outside of Tokyo or outside of Japan found it more convenient to attend online. However, we were looking at a camera where we were not able to look at the audience, and it was not as exciting, and therefore we are grateful that we are once again able to have this forum in person and meet you in person. This is a holiday today in Japan, and for November it is a very warm, fine day, and I think you are tempted to take a walk outside or play golf, but thank you very much for coming nonetheless today. And today, from more than 20 countries, we have the gracious attendance of their excellencies and the members of the diplomatic corps, to which we are deeply grateful. And I would also like to thank the attendance of the supporting members, distinguished guests, and many members of the audience. For the last few years, we did not have the opportunity to directly report to you the activities of Goi Peace Foundation. So allow me to spend a little time today to give you an update on our activities. The major activities of Goi Peace Foundation include events to promote peace consciousness, Goi Peace Award, peace education programs for youth, and international networking and collaboration. These are the major pillars of our activities. They are interrelated in some ways, but through these activities, we would like to promote the movement towards peace. As for events to promote peace consciousness, for example, Forum Today is a part of such activities. We also organize a lecture series, Values for the 21st Century. We also organize symposium and workshop. through these events, we would like to provide opportunities to think about peace and to raise awareness about peace. The foundation was established some years ago, and 10 years prior to the foundation establishment in 1988, not-for-profits called May Peace Prevail on Earth International was established in the United States. We were staying in New York for about 4 years around that time, and this became a UN NGO and is engaged in grassroots international peace consciousness promotion activities over many years. More specifically, transcending nations, races, and religions, we would like to offer pure prayers for peace. And with each country counting more than 190 countries, we are praying for peace by having the flag of each country in the flag ceremony. We have held the flag ceremony in various places, including the United Nations General Assembly Hall, and in schools and in other places. You may have seen a peace pole. This is also a symbol for peace, and in many languages, May peace prevail on earth is inscribed, including in French, in German, and in many other languages. In the language of the country, the peace message is inscribed on peace pole, and I believe in the world, in more than 190 countries, in all of the countries, more than 250,000 poles have been erected. Through these activities, people who see these, including the peace pole, we hope will realize the importance of the peace and will spend even a little time to pray for peace. These are some of our activities to promote peace consciousness, and our objective is to foster awareness of peace in people's minds. And the second is Goi Peace Award. And this year, later, we will have a presentation ceremony, and this year's recipient is Dr. Scilla Elworthy, who has kindly joined us today. And over the years, 23 recipients have received the award. Please find the list of the past laureates in the handout. In some cases, as an individual or as a pair. And this is not only to acknowledge the achievements, but we would like to introduce how they are living their lives and how they are making contributions to the peace in the world as a role model. And so in that sense, Goi Peace Award is a part of activities to promote peace consciousness. Next, peace education programs for youths. This is an area that our foundation would like to focus even more going forward. And therefore, I would like to elaborate a little about this program. Peace education programs may sound a little too formal, but actually, we are not trying to teach something in one-way fashion. We are providing information to the youths and provide opportunities and a forum for discussion to connect youths with each other, is to encourage them to engage in activities towards peace. So we would like to provide an indirect support to young people. That is the objective of the peace education program. And as one such project, for more than 20 years after the establishment of the foundation, we have continued international essay contest for young people. We accept essays in 3 languages now, in Japanese, English, and French. And under different theme each year, for example, what is peace, what is life, or to think about oneself, under these different themes each year, we ask for applicants to submit essays. Our theme can be about a better future society and what one is able to do to make better future. And the objective is for children and young people to take different perspectives. This year, the theme is Youth Creating a Peaceful Future. We have received more than 20,000 essays from 168 countries. And the first prize winning essay in children's category was written by an 8-year-old Nigerian girl. And in Japanese girls senior high school student essay won the first prize in the youth category. Please also find their essays in the handout. And the first prize receives the Prime Minister's prize. And in the past, during the forum, essay prize presentation ceremony was also held. But after we switched to online forum, we have decided to separate the essay contest prize presentation ceremony. We wanted to provide a space where essay contestants are able to read essays of each other to think more deeply about what is written in the essays. This is called a Winners Forum. And in the past 24 years, a total of around 300,000 children and youths have participated in this contest from 192 countries, almost all countries in the world. Many children and youths have participated in the contest at least once. And the past winners are active in various fields, including those that went on to pursue careers in government agencies, embassies, or international organizations, or those who became doctors or university teachers, or there are those who have established their own NGOs or have become an advocate for children's rights or experts in women's rights, and they are successful in their respective fields. And that gives us a great pleasure. Goi Peace Foundation in 2004 was granted special consultative status with the United Nations ECOSOC, Economic and Social Council, and in 2006, our foundation was admitted to official relationship status with UNESCO as the first ever Japanese organization to be given such status. And UNESCO General Conference is held every 4 years. And on those occasions, we are organizing Youth Forum. And in 2014, at UNESCO World Conference, we co-organized Youth Conference in 2014. And in youth area, we have built a very strong cooperative relations with UNESCO. In particular, UNESCO is leading efforts in ESD, or Education for Sustainable Development. This is, in a nutshell, education program to nurture people who will realize sustainable society. At the UNESCO headquarters and with UNESCO headquarters and UNESCO Japanese National Commission, we have cooperated and have played a central role in ESD. If I may say so, in ESD activities, we have won recognition and trust as foremost organization in that activity.
Regarding specific ESD promotion projects in Japan, we have supported activities of the ESD Japan Youth Conference since 2014, which has been organized, managed in collaboration with the ministry. Dialogue, forums, and learning place was given. We extended such support. As for the participants, they come from a variety of industries, including school teachers, students, NPOs, businesses, government. The community has grown to about 300 people. Joint projects between youth have been born from them, and some of them themselves in getting involved in development of the next generation human resources as leaders as they grow. Just a couple of days ago, there was great news. After the earthquake in Fukushima, to promote organic cotton in Fukushima after the disaster, that project was awarded the Minister of the Environment Award just a few days ago. So ESD, human resources, are steadily developing in this way. So youth who are really thinking about the society, that number is increasing and we feel so gratified. As you might be familiar, the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, this batch, towards 17 goals, the United Nations taking the lead to resolve those societal problems and issues. And to resolve those issues, projects, ideas are presented in the entrepreneurship competition. The German Entrepreneurship Foundation is co-working with us. I talked about the essay context, and this one is a competition concerning projects. Again, it's not just about selecting the excellent ones, but through these activities from experts about entrepreneurship, various ideas, including fundraising, how to do the work. Entrepreneurship campus has also been established to nurture such social entrepreneurs. In addition, as the foundation, centering on the foundation volunteers in various parts of Japan, gathering children, and then through the fun games and the exposure to nature, nurture the mind and the heart. This is called the Earth Kids Space Program, which has been continuing for many years. We are graced by many excellencies, diplomats, and excellencies have also been cooperating with us, asking them to actually go visit schools about the lives and the children, or they are kind enough to invite children to have those exchanges. So for children, directly from the excellencies, you can listen to them. So you can't really think of any education better than these. So once again, I just would like to thank all the embassies, including excellencies and diplomats present today, for your continued support. So our foundation is committed to supporting and empowering young people through various programs. Currently, it's not easy to change today's complex and chaotic world into a better society. It's not easy at all. But it is undeniably that the young generations, children who will be responsible for this change, of course we have to keep making efforts. But the youth, their power, we need to empower them and we need to support them. We believe that's a very important mission. Lastly, I'd like to mention a little about international exchange. I talked about UNESCO and the United Nations, our cooperative relations. In addition to those, at various international fora, events, we have been exchanging with many of them, implementing joint projects, for instance. And in this process, so many people and organizations who are active globally, we have been able to have the networks. And we believe this is a great asset for us. And centering on these people, in 2015, we established the Fuji Declaration with 200 honorary signatories and 60 international organizations, including former heads of state, Nobel laureates and others. The Fuji Declaration is based on a theory of innate goodness of people and the belief that divine spark resides in the hearts of every human being, and that all living things are interconnected and are one. So we express that in the Fuji Declaration. And based on that set of values, a new civilization. In other words, at the moment, we are so bent on material values. We would like to have the civilization that values spiritual values, and we aim to change the consciousness of each and every one of us. The Renaissance that emerged in Europe in the 14th century was a revival of literature and arts for reconstruction, revival of humanity, and aimed at the reviving scholarship, culture, and humanity. The Fuji Declaration is positioned as a spiritual renaissance that revives human spirituality. Looking at the current world situation, we see environmental pollution, climate change, resource depletion, poverty, hunger, and of course, the most dangerous conflict of our time. I can't help but wonder, it's just all in a critical situation. And I can't help but wonder if humanity can really survive well into the future. I feel a sense of crisis. And it is hard to believe that these crises can be solved only by superficial and physical symptomatic treatment. I don't think we'll be able to overcome this crisis unless we change our awareness and behavior, each and every one of us. Today's forum is entitled Peace Within Changes the World from Within. So in this current situation, this is an important theme to consider in the context of the situation we find ourselves in today, and it is Dr. Scilla Elworthy, the laureate this year. This has been the very theme of the life of this year's Peace Prize laureate. About Dr. Elworthy, Mr. Sato, chairman of the Goi Peace Prize Selection Committee, will later give more details about Dr. Elworthy. But first, I would like to congratulate Dr. Elworthy upon receiving the Goi Peace Award and welcome Dr. Elworthy and her husband John to the award ceremony. Welcome. Later, I look forward to listening to you in the commemorative speech and the dialogue session. I'm really looking forward to that, especially this Ukraine issue, Palestine issue. If you look at the world is in a really difficult, challenging situation. And Dr. Elworthy, to resolve conflicts and to build peace, you have been making so much effort. Then based on that experience, how should we think about this? What should we do? What can we do? What should we do? I would be grateful if you could give us some suggestions on how we should think and what we can do in such a situation. And let me close my opening remarks by hoping that today's forum will be meaningful to you all. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
We would now like to proceed to the award presentation ceremony of 2023 Goi Peace Award. The chairman of the Goi Peace Award Selection Committee and honorary executive director of Tokyo National Museum, Dr. Teiichi Sato, will introduce this year's laureate. Dr. Sato, please. On behalf of Goi Peace Award Selection Committee, I would like to introduce Dr. Scilla Elworthy, the 2023 Goi Peace Award laureate. Goi Peace Award recognizes and honors individuals and organizations and praise their research and activities that are aligned with the philosophy and principles of Declaration for All Life on Earth advocated by Goi Peace Foundation. for their outstanding contribution in bringing the true peace and harmony on the earth and mankind in the areas of education, science, culture, art, and others. After a rigorous and fair selection process by the selection committee, it was decided that the award will be presented to Dr. Scilla Elworthy, who has dedicated her life to non-violent peace activities. When she was 13, Dr. Elworthy was shocked by the news image of Soviet tanks invading Budapest, crushing the Hungarian Revolution. She was deeply shocked by that news image. This became the start of her peace activities, as I understand. Since then, she has been very passionate about doing something for the world issues and people struggling in difficult circumstances. She has been providing assistance to refugees and war orphans and to people in socially vulnerable positions in various parts of the world. In the 1980s, becoming aware of the real danger of the nuclear war, she established a think tank, Oxford Research Group, and conducted a thorough investigation and research to avoid crises, and promoted a dialogue between the nuclear policy makers around the world and citizen groups promoting the elimination of nuclear weapons, and made a huge contribution to creating the international drive towards nuclear disarmament. In 2002, she established a charitable organization, Peace Direct, to support grassroots activists who are working to build peace locally in conflict areas. While continuing with these visionary yet realistic initiatives, Dr. Elworthy arrived at a conviction from many years of experience that the desired outer changes cannot come about without the inner change. She has come to have that conviction through various educational programs and publications. She has encouraged many to cultivate the inner power and to take leadership and to take action that will give a positive impact on the world. Goi Peace Award is presented to honor the efforts and achievements over many years by Dr. Scilla Elworthy, who has demonstrated that non-violence and dialogue, empathy and trust relationship, and inner peace lead to the world peace, who undertook efforts to prevent conflicts and disputes and activities for transformation in various parts of the world. On behalf of the selection committee, that was the introduction of this year's laureate, Dr. Elworthy.
Dr. Sato, thank you. Now we would like to move on to the ceremony. May I present the laureate for 2023 Goi Peace Award, Dr. Scilla Elworthy. Join me in welcoming her with a round of applause. Mrs. Masami Saionji, chairperson of the Goi Peace Foundation, will present the Goi Peace Award. The floor is yours, ma'am. Diploma of Merit, the Goi Peace Foundation is privileged to confer the Goi Peace Award upon Dr. Scilla Elworthy in honor of her lifelong dedication to prevent and transform conflicts and build sustainable peace throughout the world. Through her effective peace-building activities and educational programs founded on deep compassion and wisdom of the heart, she has inspired many people to develop inner power and take action for positive impact in the world. November 2023. Masami Saionji, Chairperson. Hiroo Saionji, President, the Goi Peace Foundation. Congratulations. Next, the medal giving ceremony. Dr. Scilla Elworthy, the laureate of this year, congratulations. All the presenters, thank you so much. Well, may I invite Dr. Scilla Elworthy to deliver the commemorative speech. It is titled, My Soul Path to Peace. The floor is yours, ma'am.
First, may I say how deeply touched I am by all the preparations, all the meetings, and the selection process that has gone into this very happy day of my life. I'm deeply honored to receive the Goi Peace Award for this year, especially in view of the extraordinary work that this organization does all over the world. It moves me so much to see the photographs on the screen just now and to witness again the power of your work with young people. It is so vitally important. Also, you have found a way to make inner work, the development of soul power, recognized and effective in the world. Because my belief over 50 years of activism is that activism becomes far more effective in the world when it is powered by inner strength. Because then we are using another power, which is not ours, but it can come through us to convey the message to everyone in the world that peace is possible. And right now, in the midst of two terrible wars and many other less recognized wars, that advent of peace, that beginning of the recognition that this mission to bring about world peace is possible. Just looking out at the audience today, I can see that here in Japan is a wonderful momentum for this to happen. And I deeply thank Mr. and Mrs. Saionji and all the team that has worked so tirelessly in the foundation on all the different types of your work for so long. I bow my head. So, I'm speaking now in the name of many people from many countries to thank you for what you've done. And I was asked to talk about my life journey. So I will start in 1953, when my beloved brother, George, was suddenly killed. I was 10 years old, and it broke my heart. I mention that because heartbreak is a source of power, and I will come back to that later. 3 years later, as mentioned earlier, I was watching on a grainy old black and white television in my parents' living room. I was 13 years old, Soviet tanks crashing into Budapest and killing young people not much older than me. And I rushed upstairs and started packing my suitcase. And my mother came up and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm going to Budapest." I didn't even know where Budapest was. And she said, "What for?" And I said, "Because something so horrible is happening there, I have to go and help." And she said, "Don't be so silly." And I started to cry. And she got it. She understood straight away. And she said, "Okay, I understand. If you will just unpack your suitcase, I will see to it that you get trained, because you're much too young, age 13, to be any help to anyone." And she did. She sent me off aged 16 to work in a holiday home for concentration camp survivors. And I spent the summer peeling potatoes and listening to their stories of what had happened. And then I went on to work in an orphanage in Algiers, and then I worked for 10 years in South Africa on alleviating malnutrition in children. We were actually watching milk being poured down the mines in front of starving children with huge pot bellies. And it was so clearly wrong that something had to be done. And we did it as well as we could. And so, aged in my teens, I grew up very conscious of the horror of nuclear explosions in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I could not understand how human beings could possibly do this to other human beings. So, as I learned more and grew up more trying to be of service, I realized the acute danger of nuclear war by accident. In fact, in November 1983, Moscow was 18 minutes away from ordering a major nuclear attack on the United States by mistake. An incoming radar information had been understood as an incoming American nuclear strike, until a very intelligent engineer looked at the screen and said, "No, hold it." And they had already alerted the Politburo in Moscow that they had 15 minutes to decide to fire a reply exchange. And this engineer said, it's not an incoming flight of missiles, it's a flock of geese. And it was. So we were so close to world disaster. And I sensed that at that time it was essential to talk to those who were making these decisions on nuclear issues in all the 5 nuclear nations, the then 5 nuclear nations. And this prompted me to start the Oxford Research Group. And we spent 4 years finding out who were the decision makers, because I'd been working at the UN, and it didn't seem to me that we were talking to the right people. The politicians couldn't really make the changes that were needed. So I decided to find out who were the physicists who were designing the nuclear warheads, who were the engineers who were building the missiles to carry the nuclear warheads, who were the chief military people who were designing the strategy to deliver this terrifying onslaught, who were the people who were making money out of the whole thing, and last of all, who were the politicians who were putting their stamp on the decisions. And we spent 4 years, and it took us that time to publish a book called How Nuclear Weapons Decisions Are Made, and by whom. And our book had wiring diagrams of how the bureaucracies, the military, the physicists in each of the then 5 nuclear nations, how they worked, and who were the individuals actually responsible. And it was very shocking. They tried very hard to prohibit the publication of this book, but now, when I go into ministries of defense in France or China, I see copies of that book very well thumbed because they didn't know how the whole system worked. And then the next step was to say, can we bring some of these individuals, these are people, can we bring them together in off-the-record conferences to actually meet each other and listen to each other? And that was the surprise. So we had, first of all, conferences in Oxford, where I was working and living. And then we were invited to Beijing. We went to Beijing, I think, 7 times to meet the equivalent dignitaries there. We went to Moscow, we went to France, and we had many interactions with the United States. And the key thing was to make this informal. So there was no list of participants. It was completely deniable. And that meant that more of these individual people, I think 95% male, were willing to come because they were not going to be accused at home of doing something disloyal. But what they were actually invited to do was to sit in a big circle with no desks and talk to their neighbors, and more importantly, to listen to their neighbors. I became convinced that it was this ability, not just to say, oh, I heard what you said, but to listen in such a way that you understood the feelings behind what that individual was saying. And we even encouraged these gentlemen to repeat back to their next door neighbor in discussion, not only the words that they heard, but what were the meaning, the feelings behind those words. Because many of these people were engaged in top-level formal negotiations. So it was a real privilege and quite an effort to enable them to talk to each other in this way. And it eventually formed the basis of treaties that the foreign offices of the relevant countries could propose and agree. So, I did this work until 2002 when I handed it on to very, very able successors, because I began to recognize that something really passionately exciting was happening at the grassroots. Namely, that ordinary people, such as you've seen on the screen here, were doing extraordinary work to actually prevent and stop armed conflict where they lived. So they were intervening, often risking their lives, to bring those very violent conflicts to an end. But nobody was supporting them. They were unknown. These are what we call non-governmental organizations, and they're always short of money. And so our job was to make their work known and to encourage them to keep going with the courage that was needed to do this, because often they risked their lives in intervening to stop armed conflict. Over 20 years, Peace Direct, that's the name of the organization that I started, it has now supported and trained peace builders in 28 countries. For example, the work of Henri Bourra-Ladier in bringing militias, militant groups, very violent ones, to the table in eastern Congo. For example, the brilliant peace builder Deka Ibrahim Abdi, who quelled the election riots in Kenya in 2009. And this honor that I've received today shows a deep appreciation of all the work and the courage of these people. So then I was asked to talk about what's my approach. So I've discovered through extensive experience that the most effective approach to peace builders is to work with women. Our work shows that women are especially good at preventing and resolving armed violence. They have a vast set of skills to bring help to calm chaos. And I would like to give you just 2 examples of what they've done. In Northern Ireland, where sectarian killings had escalated to a crisis level in the early 1970s, Betty Williams and Myrid Maguire co-founded the Community of Peace People, and they mobilized over 10,000 Catholic and Protestant groups to walk and march in the streets of Belfast. Just doing that was risking your life. People threw stones at you and worse. They received the Nobel Prize in 1976 for their efforts. And then, if we go to Africa, in Liberia, in West Africa, after a 14-year civil war, Lema Gbawi united Christian and Muslim women in an interfaith movement, the Women of Liberia Mass Action for Peace. And the women acted as intermediaries between Charles Taylor, the premier, and the rebel leaders who'd been incredibly vicious and violent for many years. And the women did this by staging sit-ins, so they wouldn't allow the negotiators to leave the peace negotiations until they had agreed a peace agreement. They boarded up all the windows and doors around the building with the help of the janitors, and they wouldn't let them out until they signed an agreement, which they did. And they also received a Nobel Peace Prize for doing this. And overall, I think female teams have the skills to listen with care to all sides. Women do consult with victims of war. They talk to teenage orphans, the victims of war, and mothers of the disappeared, widows starving in destroyed homes, to bring their concerns, otherwise unheard, to the fore. And they insist on care of the wounded, of war orphans, and proper burial of the dead. And they bring all this into the peace agreements, which otherwise would not be considered. So the second major skill in peace building is, and I've touched on this, the skill to listen. For example, when another person is angry or threatening, if I can listen deeply to their anger or their fear, if we can listen so carefully that we can feed back to them not just what we heard, but what they actually meant. Gently saying something like, I hear how angry you feel. You have been insulted. You have been hurt. And this allows them to say, yes, and what's more? And then they pour out their pain. That's the way to make progress. And eventually we can learn what they really need, and they'll spell that out, and that can be built into agreements. And the ability to listen is just one of the 8 skills that we now teach worldwide in a course called The Mighty Heart, and I'll return to that later. Lastly, I've come to recognize that preventing war is the business of business. One of the most effective approaches to peace building is to involve the corporate world. Why? Because companies have lost vast amounts as a result of the current war, the war in Ukraine I'm talking about, and also made fortunes from other people's suffering. Just one more example, those post-election riots in Kenya that I described about cost over 1,000 lives, billions of pounds in ruined businesses and economic contraction, and displaced over 500,000 people. Shocked, the companies involved, 5 of them who'd had their premises wrecked in Nairobi streets, realized that they needed to act, and they got together, took advice from local peace-building experts, leaders, and they planned how to defuse violence at the grassroots. As a direct result of their work, the elections of 2017 were called free and fair by the European Union. There was no destruction of property, there was no interruption of trade, and no one was displaced. The cost? Just over £500,000. So the financial losses of international businesses due to war in Ukraine are grave. And my third organization, the Business Plan for Peace, has worked closely with the international retail company H&M, many of you may know, showing what a company can do proactively rather than assuming that peace building is the job only of the United Nations or diplomats or international charities. So in our dialogue session later, if I may, I'll put the question, so what can be done by your company if you have business or branches in unstable areas? And I'll offer examples from many countries of where private companies are now employing former competence. They're using formidable courage of those I've worked with to intervene in these conflicts before they erupt to major killing. And I'll describe the working of the infrastructure for peace, which effectively prevented civil war in South Africa. You know, I lived in South Africa at the time, and everybody expected that when Mandela came out of jail, there would be civil war. And Mandela developed a plan, and it was to have peace councils in every village, every town, every rural area, and ultimately in the whole of the government structure. Each part of the structure had to have a peace council whose job it was to develop a peace plan so that when localized violence broke out, they knew exactly what to do and who could do it. So, how do I see the current situation? How can we use it as an opportunity to create a more peaceful and safer future? So given the grave disaster happening now in Palestine and Israel, and the stalemate in the terrifying war in Ukraine, can we see this as an opportunity for human awakening? And what can ordinary people do to contribute to a better future? When we don't know what to do about unbearable news on the TV, the first thing to do is feel it. Don't avoid it. That only leaves you more helpless. Let your heart open. You may feel like this breaks your heart, but if you can do it, there's a lot more energy and power behind the pain. That energy is very useful for change. Anything that breaks our heart or exasperates us has energy behind it. And then we can realize that the heartbreak is also inside the leaders of these conflicts, whether you agree with them or not. Let our hearts open to them too. This is the energy that's fueled a lot of our own work with my colleagues. And it came from heartbreak, as you know. So I encourage everyone to be someone who doesn't take sides but invites compassion, invites the hearts of leaders to open to possibilities they had not otherwise thought of. Imagine them becoming heroes of the future because they were able, in these terrifying times, to see and do what seems impossible, but what they know inside themselves is wise. So we invite them, and all of us in this beautiful hall today, to become great enough to carry fresh thinking and understanding through the blindness and the rage, to use skills learned in years of leadership to persuade and to take a stand for what is right, to inspire others to rise out of the quagmire of violence. So let us, if you're willing, take the final moments of my talk just to hold in our hearts those negotiating between Israel and Hamas today, those working to end the war in Ukraine, and those in conflicts in different parts of the world, that they may find the courage to prevail for peace on earth now. So I'm just going to ask you to take 1 minute and close your eyes, please. And just hold all those people who are frightened, who are threatened, who don't know what to do. Hold them, please, in your heart. The power that lies in the care of your heart is very strong. We must use it every day. Thank you. You can make a real contribution to a possible peace. I'm deeply grateful to Goi Peace Foundation for supporting, as they have done, those working to stop violent conflict by promoting consciousness, values, and wisdom throughout the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The lecture was very moving and full of insight. She told us the importance of listening, and she led us to have meditation. Please send a big round of applause once again to Dr. Elworthy.
本当にお美しくて、そして柔らかい、お
It
優
was a
しい、穏やか
beautiful,
な語り口で、
a
でも
soft,
まさにまさに
calm
内面から出る
tone,
エナ
and
ジーと言いますかね、
but
パッションと言い
however,
ますか、
inner
本当に
force
シーラさんを突き動か
was
しているもの、
evident.
魂の旅路、平和への旅路というものがよ
What
くわかりま
drives
した。ありがとうござい
Dr.
ました。
Scilla to the journey of
以上をも
soul,
ちまして、皆様第
we
1
were
部
able
を
to
終了させ
understand
ていただ
that.
きま
With
す。
that, we
この
would
後
like to conclude part 1.